Okay. And this is the actual animal. So you can see I'll zoom out slightly, move some of the materials. And this is what we were working on. Okay. And it's, again, I apologize, the quality of my camera is not the best, or the light in my kitchen. But if I hover over my hand, you can kind of see, you can see the beak, variables in terms of shadows and lights, not just black and white, right? These are all layers that we applied. This took about like slightly more than an hour, but now I want to start and make a new drawing for today's class. But again, rather than using the Jaguar, does anybody else have a reference they would like me to use? I'm gonna start making.
This is Caleb. I have
Yes.
a reference that I sent. Could you check it?
Of course. I'm going to, Caleb, let me add some tape on the borders and I'm going to download your image. Give me 1 second. So I'm using drafting. Go ahead, Caleb.
So the image, I like the image, but it's landscape and not portrait. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
actually, you just reminded me that's something we didn't talk about in the assignment. You do guys have the option to use a landscape or a portrait orientation. So for example, Caleb's image will be a landscape orientation. By all means, if you want to do that, you're more than happy to. Just putting this on here, Caleb, give me 1 second. Get a nice clean edge. Now remember, the tape is extremely useful. You want a nice clean edge on your drawings. So if you make any mistakes, if you have any errors, right, you can then go back and start. Remove the tape after we're done. Remove all these sheets of paper underneath, so I don't need them anymore. Just gonna put these. And then lastly, put out the other edge. Oop. Okay. I have a nice ready to go border already. Let's look at Caleb's image. Let me download that right now. Alrighty. Caleb, what's your animal?
Eagle.
Okay. Did you send it as a message or assignment
Email.
or email? All right, let me go to email. Okay, I see it. Oh, this is interesting. This is a harpy, correct?
Yeah. Harpy eagle.
Now, okay, this is two things. I think the composition is good. Resolution is not so great. Again, if you zoom in, this gets frustrating, Caleb, right here. All of these pixels, and it's harder to look at the animal much more clearly. And I mean, I think the color choices are not the greatest too. It's very dull. I love the harpy eagles, you know, the portrait itself is amazing, but I think something about the quality of this image is not working. So I would say keep looking for a better image if I were you.
Sir,
Okay.
I sent you 2 images, maybe if they're good or not.
Okay, let's check them out. All righty, so I have this one. Oh, that was the old one. Hold on, you sent a new one. Ruqayya, this is a different animal.
Yeah, it is.
Hold on, what animal do you have assigned? Hold on.
One is lion and
No.
tiger, sorry.
No. Hold on. Stop for a sec. I want you guys to go to the modules tab. Okay. I need you to review your animals. So they're all assigned to you. So Ruqayya, you have a turtle. Okay, these are the animals you will be using for your portraits. Does that make sense?
Okay, good
Yeah,
to
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, of course. Now, if you want to practice with those other ones, you can. But remember, I would rather you practice with some turtles rather than other animals, okay? So at this time, guys, make sure to start researching some of your images and let me know. I'm going to delete these because there's no need for I can. And then we'll go from there. I see another message from somebody else. This is from, oh, this is okay, this is the other one. So I would choose something else. Yeah, choose a turtle, please. And then anybody else? Any other suggestions, guys? Again, I would rather take an image from you guys rather than using the same image. I'll give it a few more minutes while I'm waiting for somebody to send me a reference. What I also would like to do, again, I'm just gonna make sure my camera is good to go. Nice and even. Right there, okay. Also gonna apply some tape on the corners so nothing moves. So that's some there. And then some right here. Okay. Again, if you have difficulties with this, guys, just let me know. But other than that, we're gonna first start off with the grid. Okay, I have my ruler here. Again, I tape down my paper. Okay, so keep that in mind. I tape down all 4 edges. I have about, I would say, give or take, this is probably about maybe 1.5 inches border around. So as long as it's about 1 inch, that's all you need, to be honest. Sure, my camera is good. Hold on. Okay. Oop. It's moving. That's good. Okay. Again, I'm going to make a grid. Again, guys, so while you're waiting, make sure to keep reviewing what animal reference you would like to use.
I sent an image to you over email.
Morgan?
Yes.
Perfect. Let me open that now. All righty, Morgan, let's see what you got. This is good. Let's look at this resolution. Morgan, there's a few things. And I'm actually glad that you sent this because this one, right? The Bobcat.
Yeah. That one.
Now, this is one position of the animal, great. Resolution of the animal, great. It's could be a little better, but no, it's pretty good. Now, there's a few things. Now, again, Morgan W., if this is something you wanted to use, so if like this is the reference, what is one thing you have to keep in mind? Is the picture plane. The image is a square.
Yeah.
Our paper
Is a
are
rectangle.
exactly. So do you want to do a landscape orientation like what I'm doing right now? You can see this, right?
Yeah, I can.
Or do you want to do a portrait?
I was thinking portrait.
Okay. But then what about the negative space,
Yeah, I see that now.
right? This is something now, again, depending if you want to do this, okay? You could, in theory, crop, and I'm just, again, hypothetically, you can crop the image to like what, right around here, but I think you'll lose some of the ears. Let's just say we did this. And if this is something that you're happy with, you have to make that decision, right? I don't think it's, personally, I think the ears are necessary, especially for the Bobcat and the sort of the face shape, the general shape of the face. So I think we need more information because all of these nice sort of fur, kind of like how it angles and arches this way, it's beautifully rendered in the photo. So that is, I feel like is necessary. Like we need that. So if I were you, I would probably do it in a landscape. But depending if you're happy with it, now I don't know if you could find a better quality of the same image. It's probably one out there. But then again, this is better, like cropping your image like this and then having all the negative space on these sides rather than the top and bottom, right?
Okay.
Now you could also do this, like slowly crop it even further to kind of remove some of the bottom. And this will be sort of your picture plane. Okay. This is something that, again, a lot of students always forget is look at the size of your paper, right? It's a rectangle. Now, depending if Morgan W, if you want to go through that route in terms of using this image, really be mindful, right? You don't want any negative space kind of randomly all over, right? It just wouldn't make any logical sense. So again, it's up to you. Do you want to use this reference or do you want to keep researching more?
I'm gonna look for a different one.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the grid.
Professor,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I just sent you the images.
Oh, perfect. Is this Jane?
Yes.
Okay, we have 4. This is good. Good options. So
Yeah,
we have
just I
1,
wanna, yeah.
2, 3. Already, Jane, I think they're all good, but there's only one key factor that I'm worried about. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so you have 1, 2. Come on, my mouse is not working. 3, and then 4. I would say between these two, I would say this one.
Okay.
This one is okay, but there's not that much color variation. You know, try not to work with like a white wolf because it will be harder to kind of look at those variables. So I will eliminate this. Okay, process of elimination. Let's see these 3. This one's a little too horrible quality. Like it's not the greatest quality. Like the picture is, it's kind of interesting, but I don't know. Something about it is more, I feel like the snow is bothering the color variations on the animal. So I would get rid of that. And then lastly, I think this one is much more poetic, like it's reminiscent of a wolf. But again, Jane, this is completely up to you. But remember, if you chose something like this, you would then what? Crop, right? The picture plane.
Yes.
You probably lower it to, I would say, right about here. Somewhere like that, right? But then again, if you
Mhm.
zoom in, we need to see those color variations. So the quality here is still not the best. You could use this image, but if you can try to find a similar image, I would highly recommend. You're looking for something for at least 5 megabytes, like something really large in terms of its file size. This is
Okay.
probably the most stoic. And it's wonderful. I think, Jane, this is probably the best one. And this actually might be a good contender. But notice the color variations. There's violets, there's browns, there's Spanish oranges, there's hints of purples and kind of nice blues here on the mouth area. There's hints of red. This is good. This is probably the best. If you can find this image with a better quality, yes. But notice, like I saw that when I saw the email, look, if I hover over here, look, 420 kilobytes, 734 kilobytes, 640 kilobytes, 939 kilobytes. So this is the best quality. Try to look for at least 5 megabytes or higher, okay? And go from there.
Okay.
Let me see, I have another message from somebody else. Ruqayya, this is another one from you. Let's see this one. Oh, hold on, I'm gonna close all the other ones from Jane. Give me 1 second. Oh no, that's actually the same one. Anybody else?
No, sir, I sent you turtle.
Yeah, I'm downloading that right now. I'm just waiting for it to. Oh, there it is. This is good. Now this resolution's great. Okay. I like how the turtle's kind of coming towards us directly. And there's wonderful color choices, right? Again, you zoom in, you can see all these great color choices. How do you feel about this, Ruqayya?
A little hard to draw this.
If it's too hard, then choose something else. If you feel like it's too hard, then choose something else. Remember, you're not doing the background. The background is going to be empty. Find something else. Find something that you're comfortable with. I want you guys to find something that you're really comfortable with. Okay?
Okay, so, sir, if I didn't find other source, is it fine to use this one?
It's completely up to you. So I would say yes. In terms of my recommendation, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to continue with the grid. And then again, if anybody else has another reference I would like to use, let me know. Unless we can use one of them, one of the ones that you guys have already sent. sure my grid is nice and even. Again, guys, if you want to follow along, make sure to do so. Okay, you could do this. I would highly recommend using the grid. It's really helpful. Okay. We're going to go over those materials, but I'm just sharpening my apple green. Because we'll talk a little bit about adding the layers. Okay. Again, guys, make sure to review the list of animals under the modules tab. Everything has been assigned to you. If you have any questions about it, let me know now. Again, guys, I apologize. My lighting in my apartment is not the greatest. I have horrible lighting, but hopefully we'll work with what we have. Again, add a horizontal line here to make another set of squares. Move my laptop. And another set of vertical lines. We'll run through up and down. Okay. Pretty self-explanatory, right, guys? We all know how to do this. Literally will take you, what, 2 minutes to make a grid? Now, this is the great starting point. If you're, again, having difficulties collecting or finding ways in which how to start this process, apply a grid, okay? It'll make your job a lot easier, already. Let's see. I have another reference. Let's see. Actually, Roqaya, this is the best quality one, this one. This is great. This is, I would say, the best. Let's use this for the demo.
Okay.
Okay. Now, a few things. Depending on whether or not, Roqaya, if you want to do this, what do you notice right away? The picture plane. What's the problem?
I don't know.
Look at it carefully. It's a lot wider, right?
Yeah.
So what do?
Cut it.
Exactly. I think probably I would like to show more of the arm than the rest of the body because I think it's more interesting. I'm going to say probably, we'll say right there. Oh, I have to. How do you feel about that?
Amazing.
Let's make sure to see if that's slightly off. Okay. So then now let us use the grid. Again, I'm using my preview and I just use the sort of the drawing tool here, the what is this called? I think this is the sketch, which is like sort of a pencil. Again, I'm going to make a diagonal line from top to bottom, right? From here to here. And again, Roqaya, if you want to start doing this with us as well, by all means, I would highly recommend. And if you guys want to follow along and just use this image here for the actual demo, let's do it. Okay.
So, sir, is it okay if I use it as a reference too? That's fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
So we're going to make another horizontal line, and notice again with the preview, it's actually a great tool to kind of, again, oh, let me delete that. Just trying to drag this with my mouse, having difficulty. And these little dots, these green dots actually help as a guide, which is great. I like to kind of copy paste each one, and then I can again move it around. And then again, just sort of almost, hold on. is right about there. That's right there. This one goes in here. And then I'm gonna copy paste that one and drag it over here. Okay. Also gonna make another vertical line that goes through here. And another one that goes through here. Okay. And another horizontal line. I just like to copy paste them, you know, Command C, Command V. There. Oh, hold on. There you go. That was off. Okay. How do we look? We could also change the contrast. To see how our grid looks. That looks pretty good. Hold on. There you go. Okay. Alrighty. So again, I like to kind of like put it a halfway point there, right about there. And then Ruqayya, what do you think? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, it is much easier than the first one.
Oh yeah. And it's much more information as well. Okay, so
Yeah.
now on the paper, so I'm going to stop screen sharing. I'm going to go back to the Zoom. I need to change it. So I got to make a landscape orientation. So I'm going to remove some of the tape on the corners. This goes back to, I think, Caleb's question about using a different orientation. You're more than happy to. Okay. Now, again, the camera will be the same, but this will also be a different orientation. Okay. So I'm going to slightly move out. Just bear with me. Okay. Come on. Okay, is that good? And then just tape the edges so the paper doesn't move. And I like to kind of like put pieces of tape on the corners on the counter. I'm just using my kitchen counter. So it doesn't move around and hover over. So if I like move my hand across the surface, it doesn't sort of get all over the place. Okay. So I have my grid. I have a wonderful reference from Ruqayya. So thank you for that. We're going to be using that for the reference itself. Okay. I have that parallel right next to me on my screen. Those of you who want to follow along, by all means. Okay. I can also, or you know what, actually, I'm going to, if you guys would like to follow along, I'm going to save it as a JPEG. Hold on. Put it on the desktop, and I'm actually going to put this in the chat too, just in case. So if you guys want to follow along, come on, sorry, my computer's acting up. You can do that as well. Where's the chat feature? Here it is. I'm going to close this window. I'm just going to drag. So again, guys, I just put it in the chat. So make sure to look at that. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see it. If you can't see it, I'll send it again. It's in the chat, okay? Again, so I have the image, okay? And you know what? I'm noticing I noticed the length of the squares that I made are not as, hold on. Let's pull up the image one more time. Just close all these images. What I'm noticing, Ruqayya, if you look at your image that you sent me, the grid that I have here is a lot wider. The grid that I have on the reference is actually a lot taller. I need to correct that. So what do I mean by this? So I'm going to pull up the image so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So the image that I have that I made the grid for, okay, these squares are much more even. On my drawing, they're probably around this height. Okay, so I need to correct that. So how would I do that? I would actually take the same reference. Okay, I'm going to crop it one more time. I'm going to say right about there. Okay, a little bit more. And I'm going to do this again when it's nice and even. Okay. So I want to make sure to add those diagonal lines. Let's first change the contrast slightly to right about there. Okay. So let's correct all of this. I want to make sure those are accurate as possible. It's right about there. Yeah. And that's something I always need to fix before anything else. Righty. Let's see how that looks. You know what? That's still a little too square. I could, in theory, just crop it even further. Let's do this. So I'm going to crop it even more. I'm actually going to lower the top. So I'm gonna, instead of lowering, I'm going to lower it to right about there. Take a little, yeah, that's good. Let's see how that looks. Yeah. So then now, and okay, you can see what I'm doing is just, again, adjusting the reference first, making sure it aligns spatially with my grid on my paper. This is what you guys want to figure out first, guys, before you're finalizing anything else. Okay. I think this is better. Yeah, this is a little bit better. See how that looks. That's actually still pretty. I could just like add more negative space, but the image is too close up. I wish I had more in the bottom. We'll use this for the sake of the demo. What about there? Oop. Again, I'm just using my mouse. I'm going to add a diagonal. And then horizontal. Yeah, this is pretty good. Yeah, it may be a little bit taller or wider on my end, but it's or sort of stretched out. But that's okay. It's good there. There you go. Okay. Now this is good. Alrighty. Now I'm going to stop on this end and I'm going to switch over to the Zoom. And then we're going to go from here. Again, I always like to sharpen my yellow green or apple green, excuse me. Okay, get it nice and sharp, and we just go from here. Now, again, we do this freehand. We're not going to be looking at too much in terms of geometric shapes. So we can first start off with the hand down here. Okay, I like to use the side of the pencil. Okay, we're not applying too much pressure. I'm just following this as a guide. This is the little hand over here. There's a little bump on that side, kind of goes upright, and right halfway through here is sort of where the face kind of comes in, right around here. And this is sort of where that mouth is. And it probably ends. Zoom into the image more. Right there. There's like a little lip that the turtle has. It's interesting. It's like right here. And then underneath that is sort of where the jawline underneath the mouth is. And that goes upright. And then there's these lines. And then the actual, this diagonal line here on this square actually recedes pretty well on the back. So it actually follows along this line and kind of like hover over this line here. And right about here, there's this line that kind of juts out there. And there's another area of the neck that kind of comes around. Okay. So let's do the top, this area here. And now we're going to continue along. This is sort of where the eye is, the first eye. Right, and this is sort of where the beginning of like how it kind of arches upwards to the top of the head. And it goes over this area, this square, and this square. Okay. Again, you're just following along that path. And it's interesting at this square, underneath this diagonal line, which is the majority of the top head, it almost is sort of semi closer to that line. It almost follows it as a guide. And right around here with this vertical line that runs through it towards the top, that would be the top of that area. Okay. Let me just zoom out so I can start to see more. And then this area kind of curves. And this square is interesting here on this part, on Ruqayyah's turtle, that you can start to see. This is where the back of the head is, right down here. And this, on this side, on this sort of square, right in the middle, so right around here, is sort of where the animal's body starts to end. It's the end of the picture plane. Okay. And then lastly, to make sure my screen is nice and clear, this kind of comes around. And again, I always like to work lightly, guys, because again, we're trying to figure out all of our problems first in the beginning of the sketch. So right between like halfway, slightly inwards to the left, it kind of where it's like where the head would kind of curve around. It's right around there. And this is the, look how big the head is. It's pretty massive. Okay. And right around here with all the kind of surfaces of the turtle, I'm going to leave that blank because I don't need to worry about that now, but that's where the body will be. Okay. I just need to map out my general composition. Here is, let's now sort of fill in the rest of the eye. Okay, so that's one side, and adjacent to that would be the other side. And you notice right around here is sort of where the arch of that sort of almost eyebrow is, which is interesting. So it kind of comes around here and actually goes all the way up here, excuse me. This is the top of it. It comes down, go around here, and it kind of loops in here. See that? Okay, if I'm going too fast, guys, please let me know. And there's another sort of arch that happens there too. There's also this yellow kind of turquoisey gray color here, which is interesting. Now there's this area that goes upright and kind of curves in this way. Right? Okay. And there's that line here. There's sort of those wrinkles and those lines here. Again, I'm just trying to be mindful of all of those areas, but then also there's sort of this really interesting forehead that has a kind of nice sort of really strange mark on the center. So this is kind of like where the forehead would be. And this is where the nose is in this area, in this picture plane. So it actually comes out here. I'm going to fill that in and actually fills that out here to where that is. So that's the nose, okay? It also loops around almost like a triangle. It also comes around here. And sort of the surface is nice because you can kind of see these wonderful lights that jut out and in, but it's a lot flatter. So this is all of where those areas are. And right around here is sort of where this arch is. This is interesting because now the head starts to kind of curve around that area so far. Okay. I'm just going to add here the rest of the hand. And that's the hand so far. I'm not going to worry too much, okay, about the grass or the seaweed. You can actually add some marks here if you want. Again, you don't have to, but I think, I mean, it might be interesting in the drawing later on, but that will be secondary because that's not important. Let's go back to the eye. Now around here on this picture plane, remember you're following along the grid. So right around here goes where the eye sort of drops from this sort of vertical line, and it kind of slopes upwards. And it's interesting too. So I'm following now this picture plane of this grid, kind of goes slightly over and has this kind of nice, interesting texture. And this, the general shape of the eye so far, the negative space. But around it, it has almost sort of like an iris, which is interesting, but it's pretty hard to see. But so that line is there. Right above that is sort of where that yellow line is. Okay, if you can follow along on that area, you'll start to see it more and more. Okay. It also is like sort of a slope that kind of follows that. That will be filled in with yellow, right? But right around, I would say right around here is where the dark area of the eye is. And it kind of comes around and kind of like ends, I would say, more than probably like halfway through to right about here, but also slopes down, right? Slopes right down here, but also comes around. And that is where the eye is. Okay. Within that, there's variables of lines and texture. Not worrying about the details. I just need to map that out first in terms of my composition. But then I can start adding those spots. So for example, that little crevice here, where that horizontal line is, how it meets in the slope, there's a sort of a really interesting sort of almost spot of the turtle. I'm just gonna generally make a spot there. There's another one in this picture plane. They look like small little continents, which is kind of cool. And then there's another one here that kind of like angles itself. Looks like the Batman logo, to be honest. And then right around here, it starts to kind of go upwards. And this follows this line of the edge of the eye. So right here. So it kind of goes here like that. Do you see that? So right around here is where that is. But remember now, right over here, there's like a slope. This is sort of where the top of the turquoisey color of the turtle is. And it's interesting too, because you'll start to see it more and more legibly. And you'll see like, okay, so that's where this is. Right? That's where this sort of wrinkle is and sort of crevice of the surface of the eye. Let's get in the eye in there. It's really interesting. There's some like yellow areas in there. It's kind of cool. It's actually, this is a great reference. Yeah, so good job on this one. Good quality image. This is the mouth. excuse me, the nose first. Okay. And then these are all the scales of the turtle's textured body, so on and so forth, right? Right around here, it's underneath the arm. Do you see that? Right? And then we'll start erasing more and more, but again, I want to first map out the composition because we don't need these lines anymore. We're going to get rid of them soon. So let's talk about this area. So this square and this square and this square. This area here has a little bit of more texture. Now it's blended in, okay, which is nice because there's a nice highlight there. But there's also sort of like really interesting kind of strange shapes here. And I'm just kind of like hovering over, and right around here, there's like a dark shadow of that spot there. You see that? Okay. And within that, there's also the sort of these values here. I'm going to make sort of, again, more lines that are sort of running at a diagonal arch, kind of up and down. You'll start to see it more and more. But then I move my way here, and I can start filling in those smaller spots. And these almost act, again, as a guide to start to see again, I'm kind of like following in this area. So this spot here, there's like a little gap here. Okay. And this picture plane is interesting because there's a lot of stuff going on here. So right around here, probably put in, these are all at an angle. So this is important to put on here. They're not flat. The head curves that way. It curves up to that surface, okay? Have to remember that. Oops. Again, I'm going over this line. Okay. And then this area. Okay. Now, what you also can do, and okay, this is depending on if you want to do this, right around this line, okay? This is where the body is. That's where the body is down there. Now let's start erasing. Because I don't need any of this anymore, right? We're going to be doing a lot of erasing, guys, so don't worry. If you mess up, it's okay. But you want to make some erasing marks now with your apple green before you do anything else. You don't want this problem later on when you add more dark layers, lighter layers, and then go back and start editing your image again. Just kind of going over. And you'll start to see those lines don't fully go away, but I'm using my white eraser because again, it's a great tool to take off some of the Prisma colors, because Prisma colors are what? They're oil-based. They blend beautifully, but you could also remove them if it's not working. I just got to be careful. I don't want to remove all of my line quality that I did before of my drawing, or I should say Rafael's drawing, excuse me. Okay, now let's start removing some of this. Oop. just lifting it up here on my counter so I can go clean it up later on. You really want a nice flat surface, guys. A nice even flat surface so then things don't move. You could also put it on if you have like a large clipboard. Okay. How does this look? I'm gonna try, hold on, I'm gonna try to turn off these lights and see. Oh, that's worse. Let's check this light. That's even worse. Let's see. Oh, let's do this. Alrighty, I'm gonna hover over this drawing. All right, okay, what do you think? Are you happy with it? What do you have any questions so far about the animal?
No questions. It's adorable.
Okay. Any other questions, guys, so far? Should I leave this light on or is this better? Leave it on? Or off? What do you guys think? On? Or off? Guys, I need some feedback. On or off?
I think on is good.
On is good, okay. On it is. Alrighty. Now I have the turtle. You can see here, it took a lot of space for the entire drawing, right? All I used was my apple green. Now, let's start getting into some darks. Okay, where do we begin? Start in the eye. So I'm going to zoom in. Okay, we're going to work our way around the eye. Okay, now a good sort of way in which you can start it off is by using some indigo blue. Now I'm done with the reference. I can sort of remove it, but I also can sort of, again, put it in a place where I don't need to look at it again, but also sort of then go back. And if I have any questions, I can always keep a record of that. We're going to replace this. Okay, so I'm also now going to go back and now I have the original drawing that I pulled up. Okay. And again, this is the one that's not cropped, which is okay because I just need to see the color variation more so. Okay. So this is what I'm going to be using. So I want to zoom in. And again, what do I see? Let's actually do a screen share. We're going to work on this area here. So let's look at this animal more. The more and more you zoom in, you'll start to see, look, this is not just black. There's violets, there's blues, there's lighter blues, there's hints of red, hints of yellow, all of it on the surface of the animal, and it's being reflected from the light. But when you zoom out, it looks like black, right? So we need to focus on those sort of color variables, and that's why it's really important to find the best, again, quality image, so you can start to see those color choices. Okay, so this is exactly what I'm looking at on my screen. Okay, so let's look at that more clearly on the drawing. So how do I start? Again, I'm going to sort of zoom in on the eye. So we're going to work right around here. And again, I'm just kind of sort of filling in with some indigo blue. I'm not going to fill in the whole thing. Okay, I am not. Just certain areas of the dark. I'm using indigo blue. And again, this is the amount of, you want to sort of even consistent pressure. I'm not applying too much pressure. I'm not. Very little. Very, very, very little. I'm just making a value and I'm going over some of those greens, okay? Because again, it'll neutralize that palette, make it nice and even, make it nice and neutral. I'm adding a layer of the indigo blue as a wash, sort of like, again, just sort of separate. This is dark and this will be light. Okay. And I like to kind of go counterclockwise, clockwise, circular motions to really get that indigo in there. Okay, to really get that nice indigo color. I'm not applying too much pressure. Remember that. Okay, you are not applying pressure. Later throughout the drawing, when we get into highlights, then you should apply a lot of pressure. Okay. I'm also noticing, again, I'm just working with my darks. There's more shadows underneath that area here. Okay. There's more shadows underneath this area here. Okay. But also on the bottom of this sort of area here, you can kind of see there's almost like an eye socket. So it's right around here. You see that? Okay. But within that, there's a line that separates this area of the reflection. I'm also going to add a light layer of the indigo blue on top of this area, which is different from the amount of pressure that I added here. If this is more pressure, you can kind of see it, it gets darker. And this area was lighter. Now, what I like to do, I see some hints of brown. So I'm going to grab my dark brown. Just bear with me, trying to find my dark brown. I have my Tuscan brown, my sienna brown, but where's my dark brown? Oh, here it is. Dark brown. And it's sort of a nice neutral color here. There's a kind of a nice brownish tint. So I'm going to add a layer on top of the blue. Okay, again, this is all layering. And we'll get a nice sort of even layer down here. Okay. But I'm also going to be adding a little bit of the layer over here, just a little bit. Okay. And I'm also going to be switching to my violet. So switch over to your violet. Let me grab some violet. Okay. I'm going to sharpen some of the violet here. Again, you can also make a violet with some blues and what? Some reds to get a nice violet. Okay. We'll also add some violet here. Again, this is just sort of subtle layers. Just very subtle. I'm kind of blending those browns and blues. Very lightly. Okay. So then now, I'm actually going to move over and actually go to some reds. And I'm going to use some of the Tuscan red. Just because there's kind of more warmer tones down here underneath the eye, which is interesting because the light reflecting on there is really nice. Okay. But then now I'm going to sharpen some of my indigo blue. Again, I'm sort of like, going to separate those lines, meaning sort of like this area. There's like a little lip here, small little lip. And then this area, there's like kind of an arch there. And right around here, I'm going to start blending the indigo blue downwards, kind of darken this and add a little bit more pressure. Again, I'm just layering. I'm not using any black at all. Okay, you don't need a black. But I also see all those lines. There's all these wonderful crevices of the line of the turtle. But for a radical change, I'm going to switch over to some cerulean blue. And now let's add some middle light. We need to get a nice sharpened cerulean blue. Again, guys, if we have any questions or concerns, please let me know now. Okay. Now those highlights over here. You can see that's a really bright color. I don't want to add too much. Okay. But I also want to sort of just neutralize that with some indigo blue. Kind of fill in those crevices. And I kind of, again, like to work around the edges. With that nice contrasting colors. Okay. I'm gonna go back and add some of the Tuscan red for those areas here to warm that up. And it does overlap to this side, but notice that the colors are starting to get warmer, right? Because there's hints of those reds in there, which is really useful. But then now I can also add some middle shadows with some purple violet or just some raw violet. Kind of amplify that even further. Going over that indigo blue. And because these are oil-based, guys, you'll start to see it much more clearly once you blend them all together. And then finally, with the sort of last layers, I'm going to add more pressure of my indigo blue downwards with a lot of pressure. See how dark that is? You guys see that? Because I'm applying a lot of pressure. Working around the sort of iris or the lens of the eye. But look how much layers we're adding on here, guys. Multiple layers. Because if you just think this is just one color, that you're not observing the animal more and more closely. And there's hints of light in there. So I could also take some cerulean blue in there, but I feel like it's still a little too light. Let's see how it looks. You can see how bright that is. And I want to act that as a highlight. Okay. And I'm also actually going to go in with a little bit of the, we use the green. So again, this is, again, I want it to sort of look like it's underwater. So this is a nice sort of almost turquoise blue that blends into some of those areas. We'll then heighten that color even further. And again, there's sort of those lines here. And then some more cerulean blue on the top here. And this is now working around the eye. And right around here, there's more violets. So I'm going to take my violet. I'm going to blend some of those areas. Do you see that? Over that here. I always like to kind of like play around with some of those color variables and textures. You guys see that? And right around here too, there's sort of like interesting layers of the violet. Okay, almost like a shadow, but it's actually more brown. So I'm gonna add a little bit more brown. And then sort of dulls it down on this side here. Okay. Now around that is what color? It looks like it's sort of a combination of Spanish orange on top of that and yellow. Okay. But there's also hints of brown that's separated. So I'm actually going to add a line underneath it. So separate that lid. Or I should say the lip right over there. Okay. Also use some Spanish orange. Just a little bit at a time. Notice it's sort of dull. It's very dull. But if I go over with some yellow, look, see how bright that is? And all of those layers will harmoniously blend to that warmer brown. And now you have sort of now lips between the eyes, right? That separate them from one to another. But you can also add some of the indigo blue right around here to kind of like show in some of those wrinkles. Okay. There's also more browns on that side as well. Yeah, I'm going over those apple greens. Spanish orange. Right? And then some yellow. Okay. And then now you can actually amplify that even further. Sort of like shadows in here. I'm going to add a little bit of indigo blue. Okay. This really interesting sort of violet sort of lids underneath this area, underneath the eye. But there's also hints of the cerulean blue highlight. I'm going to add a little bit at a time, just enough to kind of separate those like lights. Right around there. Highlights here. And then lastly, this is what you do last. You jump over to the white and you can add some finer highlights, you can see already how bright that is. It's extremely bright. And I kind of like to sort of dab it in there. Because again, I want all those lighter tones acting like a highlight to kind of come across more by just an abstract mark of the white. I don't want it to be fighting with that color. I want it to sort of blend into the color. There's a speck of white right in here. That's perfect, actually. Area here too. You can notice, see the part, when I go over the yellow, look how bright that is with the white. It's extremely bright. Right around this area too, it's interesting. There's kind of like sockets of white. Really, I'm doing this quickly, but you guys will get the idea. You don't add white at those early stages, guys. You do not add white at those early stages. So let's zoom out. What do we think so far? Now it's building upon those layers. What questions do we have so far?
Sir,
A lot of
and,
colors that we applied. Go ahead, Rokhaya.
the problem is with more work. I find a problem to find the colors, the right color to use to a painting.
So let's talk about that. So for example, again, I have on my screen, you can start to see the colors that we've used on this eye socket. And okay, part of this process would be to really analyze and focus and take a good 5 to 10 minutes and start to see what colors are used, right? So what colors are here? What do you think? Deeper blues, purples, right? A little bit of red down here. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Notice here, there's more lights of blues and crevices of the indigo blue and lighter blues and violets, as well as the cerulean light blue. Okay. That color, this color here is very similar to this color. So it's almost that sort of cerulean blue. We added a little bit of white on top of it to work around it. What happened? Right? And this is something that you have, this is one of the reasons why the reference is so crucial. The quality of the reference is so crucial. The amount of the file size of it, because now you could start to see, if I adjust the color size, or excuse me, not the color size. If I, let me see, how do I find out how big this is? Hold on. That's about 200 kilobytes, which is not that big. On the other image that we had, this one was about 197, which is actually not that bad as well. So the bigger the megabytes, guys, the better. Okay, a lot better. But then now with some of those color variations, like for example, in the background is a nice sort of even tone of the water. Rokhaya, you could leave that all blank. All of that could be blank. So for example, all of this area and this area down here could be blank, because you'll see the image will come forward more and more. You'll add layers on top of it. Let me zoom out so you can start to see it better. Okay. Did that make sense?
Yes, sir.
What other questions do we have, guys?
This is Unesa.
Go ahead, Unesa.
Like, you spent a lot of time on just the eye, so are we supposed to spend like as much time? Like, are we supposed to spend a lot of time on just like one specific part.
Well, for the sake of the demo, we just focused on the eye, right?
Yeah.
But based off of the lecture, you would start off with what? After you finish the composition with your apple green, what would you do first?
Just go in on the darker areas.
Exactly. So I would first fill in the entire drawing with my darks. And how do I make my darks? Indigo blues and browns. And then I might work my way up to my middle tones and my lighter tones, right? I just did this quickly because of the sake of the demo, so we can figure out how to map out the composition using the grid. Again, guys, I apologize. UNESA, hopefully the quality is good enough. You guys can see this, but I'll continue working on this later on today as well. And I'll upload this video onto the modules tab so for more context. But really, the first rule of thumb would be 1, good quality reference. 2, if you want to apply the system of the grid, do so. 3, start off with your apple green and you work your way up from dark, middle to lights, okay? Dark colors would be considered like blues and browns, violets and reds. Middle tones will be a variable of colors. Lighter tones will be what? Peaches, pinks. Lastly is white. You are not supposed to use black, okay? Try not to use black. It will kill the color, okay? Use a brown and blue to make a black in shadow. And you'll start to see, I want you to use the tone sheet of paper to amplify that even further, okay? So hopefully that made sense. And for the rest of the class, guys, I want to come around and talk to you guys more about how you guys feel. This assignment will also be due on the 7th of December. You have 3 full weeks to work on this. 3. Okay. I'm going to end this